At 6:47 a.m., I'm staring at my smashed cedar fence with a BMW crashed right through it. The HOA president, Patricia, is yelling at the cops, saying it's my fault because my fence was illegal. Her drunk son, Brandon, caused the wreck, and she wants me to pay for his fancy car repairs. Glass crunches under my boots, antifreeze stinks in the cold air, and Patricia's screaming that I owe her thousands. But by the end of this story, they'll be towing away more than just her son's car. They'll lose everything. I'm Derek Morrison, a 52-year-old retired electrician, and this is how I got epic HOA revenge against a corrupt Karen. What would you do if an HOA blamed you for their kid's mess? Drop your wildest HOA nightmare in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Welcome to Karen Stories, your go-to YouTube channel for crazy HOA tales full of neighborhood drama and sweet justice. That morning, I stood in my yard, watching a tow truck haul off Brandon's mangled BMW, while Patricia pointed at my fence like it was a criminal. She said it was dangerously placed and caused her son's crash. I knew she was lying. My fence was legal, built with permits and perfectly placed. But Patricia wasn't just some angry mum. She was the HOA queen who'd been bullying our neighborhood for years. I'd spent months fixing up my dream home in Maple Ridge Estates, and that $8,000 fence was part of my healing after losing my wife, Sarah. Patricia thought she could scare me into paying for her son's mistake. But I'd been an electrician for 28 years. I know how to find faulty wiring and fix it. I found her dirty secrets, and with the whole neighborhood's help, I turned her corrupt empire into rubble. This is one of the best HOA stories you'll hear, packed with revenge and justice. Stick around to see how we took her down. I'm Derek Morrison, 52, a retired electrician who spent 28 years wiring houses in Arizona. 2 years ago, my wife, Sarah, lost her fight with cancer, and it broke me. I moved to Maple Ridge Estates, a quiet suburb with nice homes and a big lake, to start over. It's the kind of place where neighbors wave, kids play outside, and the mountains feel close. I bought a cozy house and poured my heart into fixing it up. $8,000 on a cedar fence and garden beds. Every post perfectly level, every board sanded smooth. Saturday mornings, I'd sip coffee, smell fresh cut wood, and build something beautiful to honor Sarah. She loved gardening, and this was my way of keeping her close. But then Patricia Westmont, the HOA president, decided I didn't belong in her neighborhood. Patricia, 48, was the queen of Maple Ridge. She drove a white Escalade, wore fancy clothes, and had a smile that could cut you. Her husband, Craig, worked in city planning, and her 19-year-old son, Brandon, treated his BMW like a toy, speeding through our streets. Patricia ran the HOA like her personal kingdom, making rules to control everything: grass height, mailbox colors, even holiday lights. If you were her friend, you got a pass. If you crossed her, she'd bury you in fines. She'd been president for 6 years, and nobody dared challenge her. I thought I'd found peace in Maple Ridge. But Patricia saw my fence and decided to make my life miserable. She showed up one day with a measuring tape, saying my fence was 2 inches over the property line. 2 inches! She wanted $200 in fines and 30 days to tear it down. I showed her my legal survey proving my fence was fine, but she didn't care. That's when I knew she wasn't just picky. She was a bully with power. I'd dealt with tough bosses in construction, so I knew how to handle people like Patricia. She wasn't about rules, she was about control. Her family got away with everything. Brandon parked his BMW on their lawn, Craig's leaf blower woke everyone up, and Patricia's own fence broke the rules she enforced. But for regular folks like me, she'd slap you with fines for anything. My neighbor Mrs. Stella got fined for bird feeders, Janet for her cultural decorations, Mike for Christmas lights. It wasn't fair, and I wasn't going to let her push me around. I started keeping notes, saving every letter she sent, and checking the HOA rules. I learned surveys like mine were legally binding, and Patricia couldn't just make up violations. This was personal. She didn't like that I stood up to her, and she was going to make me pay. But I was ready to fight back, and I wasn't alone. The trouble started 3 months before the crash, when Patricia showed up at my house with her measuring tape and fake smile. "Derek, your fence is 2 inches over the line," she said, like it was a crime. I showed her my survey, stamped by a licensed surveyor, proving my fence was legal. She barely looked at it, saying, "Surveys can be wrong. The HOA decides." That's when the harassment kicked in. Every week, I got a new violation notice. My grass was too long, my Christmas lights stayed up 1 day late, my mailbox was the wrong black. The sound of my mailbox slamming shut with her letters was like an alarm clock I couldn't turn off. She was trying to wear me down, hoping I'd give in and tear down my fence. Patricia didn't stop with me. She went after other neighbors too. Mrs. Stella, a sweet older lady, got fined for her bird feeders. Janet, a nurse, was told her Day of the Dead decorations were inappropriate. Mike got hit for his Christmas lights being too bright. But Patricia's family, they broke every rule. Brandon's BMW sat on their lawn. Craig's leaf blower was louder than a chainsaw, and Patricia's decorative rocks were way over her property line. Nobody dared call her out. She'd fine you, or worse. I went to an HOA meeting to fight back, but it was a setup. Patricia and her friends on the board ignored my survey and voted to fine me $200. Only Mrs. Stella stood up for me, but Patricia's glare shut her down. I left that meeting knowing this was war. I started talking to neighbors quietly to see who else was fed up. Mrs. Stella told me Patricia had been harassing her for years, fining her for little things to keep her quiet. Janet said the same. She'd fought back once and Patricia backed off, but only because Janet knew her rights. Mike was mad about his fines too. We were all tired of Patricia's bullying, but nobody had fought her as a group. I kept every notice she sent, recorded every meeting, and checked the HOA rules. I found out board members like Patricia couldn't vote on their own family's issues. It was against the rules. She was breaking her own bylaws, and I was building a case to prove it. Then things got nastier. Patricia sent the city after me, claiming my fence was unsafe. Her husband, Craig, filed a complaint saying it needed permits I didn't have. I knew it was a lie. My fence was built right, with all the paperwork, but the harassment kept coming. Inspectors showed up, saying my electrical work was dangerous, even though I'd done it by the book. Every day, my mailbox had new fines, new threats, new made-up problems. Patricia was trying to break me, but I wasn't giving up. I spent hours at the courthouse, digging through records, and found something big. Her own fence was 18 inches over her property line, way worse than what she accused me of. She was a hypocrite, and I had the proof to take her down. The fight exploded on December 15th at 2:30 a.m. A loud crash woke me up, and I ran outside in my pajamas to find Brandon's BMW smashed into my fence. The kid was stumbling, drunk, talking on his phone to Patricia, saying, "Mum, I screwed up." My fence was wrecked. Cedar posts snapped, garden beds crushed. Before I could check if Brandon was okay, Patricia showed up, dressed like she was ready for a photo shoot, taking pictures of my property. When the cops arrived, she put on a show, crying fake tears and waving a folder of my violations. She told Officer Martinez my fence was illegal and caused a blind spot that made Brandon crash. She demanded I pay $28,000 to fix his car. I stood there, smelling antifreeze and her strong perfume, watching her blame me for her son's drunk driving. The police report said my fence was illegally placed, which made my blood boil. It was legal, and I had the survey to prove it. Patricia was lying to protect Brandon and stick me with the bill. She thought she could bully me into paying, but I wasn't some scared neighbor. I'd wired buildings for 28 years. I knew how to find the source of a problem. I told the cop my fence was legal and showed him my survey, but Patricia kept yelling, waving her folder like it was proof. I realized this wasn't just about the crash. She wanted me gone because I wouldn't bow to her. 2 days later, her insurance company sent a letter saying I owed $28,000 for Brandon's car because my fence was wrongly placed. I laughed and called my insurance, Maria, who checked my property. She measured every inch and said, "Your fence is 4 feet inside your line. Their claim is nonsense." She denied their demand, saying Brandon was speeding and drunk. I knew Patricia wouldn't stop. She called an emergency HOA meeting to discuss my unsafe fence. It was a trap. At the meeting, she showed big photos of my fence, calling it a danger with her brother-in-law, Randy, backing her up, saying it blocked drivers' views. They voted 4-1 to fine me $2,500 and make me tear it down. Only Mrs. Stella voted for me, but Patricia's glare kept others quiet. I recorded the whole meeting on my phone, and that's when I caught her big mistake. Back in March, Patricia had approved my fence at an HOA meeting. Now she was calling it dangerous to dodge her son's mess. Her own words were going to bury her. I wasn't just fighting for my fence. I was fighting for Sarah's memory, my home, and every neighbor Patricia had bullied. I had proof her family was corrupt, and I was ready to light up her world like a bad circuit. After the crash, I knew I had to hit back hard. I met with Frank, a retired cop who'd seen Patricia's tricks before. He said she'd done this to others, like the Hendersons, who moved after she forced them to tear down their deck. Frank told me Patricia needed fine money to pay for Brandon's legal troubles. $12,000 for her fancy landscaping came straight from our fines. I started digging at the courthouse, spending days with old records. I found gold. Patricia's fence was 18 inches over her property line, way worse than the 2 inches she accused me of. My survey was legal. Hers was a lie. I also found HOA rules saying she couldn't vote on her son's crash. It was a conflict of interest. Making her votes illegal, Frank brought more dirt. Brandon's rap sheet showed 3 accidents, 2 DUIs and a sealed reckless driving charge. Patricia used HOA fines to pay his legal bills, and Craig used his city job to cover it up. I found bank records showing Patricia paid $6,000 to fake companies run by her family, all from our HOA money. Mrs. Stella came through with a game changer. 2018 plans showing my fence was approved by Patricia herself. She'd signed off on it when she needed votes, but now called it dangerous to dodge Brandon's crash costs. We had her dead to rights. I called my lawyer, Sarah Martinez, who specialized in HOA abuse. She looked at my evidence, surveys, recordings, bank records, and said, "Derek, this is a slam dunk. She's running a scam." Sarah found a pattern. Every time Brandon got in trouble, Patricia targeted neighbors with fines. Mrs. Stella's bird feeder fines started after his first DUI. The Hendersons got hit after his reckless driving. My fence was targeted after his crash. It was a racket. Patricia used HOA power to fund her family's problems. We also found Craig gave zoning favors to rich neighbors who paid Patricia's fines, while regular folks like me got hammered. This wasn't just bullying, it was organized crime. Neighbors started joining me. Mrs. Stella brought her violation notices. Janet shared her story of cultural decoration fines, and Mike had his Christmas light citations. We met in my garage, surrounded by evidence boxes, and planned a class action lawsuit. 14 of us, with $31,000 in fines, were ready to fight. Sarah said Patricia's own records, every notice, every vote, proved her guilt. She documented her own crimes, thinking nobody would check. We sent our evidence to the State Attorney General, the Insurance Fraud Unit, and the Civil Rights Commission. Patricia's empire was crumbling, and we were about to blow it up. Patricia thought she could scare me into giving up, but she made a huge mistake. On February 15th, Craig cornered me at the grocery store, offering $5,000 to move my fence and make peace. I recorded him on my phone, catching him trying to bribe me to drop my complaints. Sarah said it was proof of obstruction of justice, a felony. Then Patricia went nuclear, filing a restraining order claiming I was dangerous because of my electrician skills and grief over Sarah. She even sent fake complaints to the IRS, Social Security, and Child Protective Services, saying I was a criminal or unsafe around kids. It was a desperate move to ruin me, but every lie added to our case. The real shock came when Brandon cracked. Facing jail for his DUIs and insurance fraud, he spilled everything to prosecutors. He admitted Patricia planned to blame my fence for his crash to avoid paying $28,000. He said she'd been using HOA fines for years to cover his legal troubles, and Craig used his city job to protect them. His confession turned our case into a federal RICO charge, organized crime using HOA power. Patricia's own son sold her out, and her lies were falling apart. The state started investigating her for embezzlement, Craig for ethics violations, and their insurance company sued for $147,000 in fraudulent claims. Patricia's world was burning, and I had the match. On March 15th, the neighborhood packed the community center for an emergency meeting. Patricia walked in, expecting to control her usual small crowd, but found 47 angry residents, Channel 7 cameras, and our evidence folders. I showed security footage of Brandon's drunk crash and Patricia's 2018 signature approving my fence. Sarah presented bank records proving Patricia stole $63,000 in HOA funds for her landscaping and family businesses. The room exploded when Frank served her with an arrest warrant for harassment, embezzlement, and obstruction. Craig was arrested for conspiracy, and Patricia's empire collapsed. We voted her out, cancelled all her fines, and made Mrs. Stella the new president. Patricia got 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, and $147,000 in fines. Craig lost his job and pension. Brandon avoided jail but lost his car and college fund. Their house was sold to pay debts. We rebuilt my fence with their seized money, better than ever. The $31,000 in cancelled fines funded a Sarah Morrison scholarship for conflict resolution students. Our community garden grew where Patricia's spies once stood, with Mrs. Stella's bok choy next to Janet's jalapenos. The neighborhood felt alive again. with no more violation notices or fear. Channel 7's story went national, inspiring new HOA laws in 12 states. 6 months later, Maple Ridge is peaceful. My fence stands tall. My garden thrives. And neighbors share coffee and laughs. We turned Patricia's old house into a community center, a symbol of our victory. Did Patricia think she could scare everyone forever, or did she just not expect a retired electrician to wire her own downfall? Share your HOA nightmares below. Hit subscribe for more HOA Karen stories.